guys, it's Bruno over at REIKA. So we got a 2021 Toyota RAV4 TRD Edition in here. We had a lot of people DMing us, emailing us, asking if our kit is compatible with this version. We weren't 100% sure, so we found somebody that owns one, we brought it in, now we're going to test fit it. And we feel like it's going to fit, and we hope it fits without any extra modifications, but stay tuned and check it out. Start off by checking the car. And we're doing this in our shop just because we wanted to show you guys that it's really easy to do. We've done it in the driveway and tools. We typically take it to the neighbor. He's got a lift and he's got power tools, but we're just going to do it here in our shop. I'll show you guys what it's all about. Jack it up. You know, jack it just to be safe. Start off removing the strut here. It's easy. So we got the top off. Now let's work our way down here. So kits do come with an install guide, but I'm not following. Just gotta make sure you take everything off before you do tear that whole shock apart. So taking that off. These guys move out of the way. This guy. Gonna remove the sway bar. See if this thing's got enough juice in it. So you could do it at home if you don't have a breaker bar. One thing I like to do is I just get a regular wrench, put the socket on there obviously, and if you can't get it, I take a mallet and then I'll smack it. They are on there pretty tight, so I just smack the end of it, or whichever way it is to loosen it up. So if you don't have an air gun or a big impact, that also works. Alright, so now take these bolts off. Actually, before I take that one off, oh, there we go. Just be careful, you don't want this to drop too hard, too fast. Actually, what we'll do is we'll get a jack down here to hold this up. Alright, so I took the two bolts off that connect the knuckle to the strut. I just put a jack down here to hold it. You don't want to overextend it or get it to drop out too low. Then the CVs will come out of place and then it's a pain in the ass to actually get in there. Super dirty, also greasy. So once that's done, go to the top. You want to hold the shock. Oh, there's the hose. Almost there. Shock comes out now. Wiggle it out. Oh, now we're stuck. So here's the shock. This is a TRD shock, so this
The spring is red, that's different. But besides that, everything else looks the same. So now we can test fit the shock spacer on there and see if it's gonna work. Alright, so here, looking for my top spacer, gotta look for my passenger. Moment of truth. Look at that. So it fits just fine. That means that these 3 studs are not positioned differently, so if this goes on there just like that, these will go back in there just fine. So now let's bolt it back up. At least on here, I'm gonna get it in the car and see if it's gonna go in there with no problems. The strut spacers on there, and then the kit comes with new hardware, so we'll get 3 of the flange nuts. So put this together. Now get our wrench, and then if you look at the install guide also has all the torque specs. So I'll go back and torque everything before I put it back on the car. Right now we're just test fitting it. So just finger tight, well not finger tight with the wrench. I'm gonna put it back in the car, see how it fits. Damn, that's fast. Shit, boy. Alright, so we got the driver's side strut out. Now we're going to put the plug spacer on there. And remember, the factory nuts go up top. Dun, dun, dun. Here we go. Alright, so we got the front of the car done already. The strut spacers work just fine. Now we're going to get started on the rear. Hopefully everything works out. Let's get to it. Alright, so we're going to loosen up the brake lines so we can drop that cradle. Not overextend the brake lines. Just to get them out of the way. Allow some more slack. So we're in a bit of a time crunch, so we're going to use the air, but you can use an impact or a big breaker bar. Wear glasses. Alright, so propping the cradle right now. I'm going to loosen them up at the same time, have a jack underneath there, and then when all 4 bolts are loose, you start lowering the jack. You don't have to bring it down all the way. You just need about an inch and a half to get the other spacers in there. Alright, so you got to remove this nut here using a 22mm. Once the nut's off, you'll take a 10mm and you got to put it on the end of this stud here. The whole stud comes out and then it gets replaced by a bolt. And the bolt actually comes with the kit. So there you go. That's how that stud comes out. So you guys can keep the stud. I would. You never know, you might need it later on, or maybe you want to take the kit off and your car's a lease or something like that and they don't want to lift when you turn it back in. So I keep it, put it in your glove box or in your sock drawer or something like that. Cradle one, the front cradle bolt, you'll pop it right off. Comes off. It has this big oversized washer. You want to keep this right here. That's what's gonna hug that little rubber gasket right there. So keep this, and then the washer doesn't come out. So you can, same thing, keep these, don't throw them. The kit comes with new ones, but just hang on to anything that you remove from the car. So the kit comes with these two aluminum spacers here. These are we're going to go in between the body of the car and the cradle drop. So we got to drop the jack about 1.5 inches. This is where we drop it, and we just got to sandwich these in there. Once they're sandwiched in there, these are the new bolts that come with oversized washers. And then you just get them in there, but you got to do it at the same time. You want to kind of just bounce back and forth. So you want driver, passengers to make sure that it goes up there evenly, and you don't have it all just lopsided. So there you go. Let's drop this thing. All right. So before we bolt up the cradle drop or the cradle, we do have to install this spacer right here. So this is where it goes. Just grab a 13mm. Make sure you got an extension or a really deep socket. Sorry, 12mm. That'll allow this right here to realign. So you need this as a drop. This will get sandwiched between this bracket and the body of the car. Then this mounting point here drops, and then it'll realign. So let's keep it going. So use a little bit of thread locker to grab a job, but just to hold it right there. So we get that, and the way we're going to tighten this up right here, we're going to get this nut in all the way, and then you're going to get a 12mm wrench, and then just keep turning it until it's tight. You don't want to over tighten it because you might break either the stud up top or this stud right here. So that's what the thread locker is for, is to hold it there. So you don't want to put too much force into that. Alright, so got the cradle drop spacers in there. Now we're going to take the new bolts, and like I mentioned earlier, you guys want to keep this one right here. That one will go in the front. We'll use a little bit of thread locker, preferably red. You don't need to use a whole lot. Well, this one already has some. Alright, so start with the back. So the spacers are in there now. All 4 spacers are underneath the cradle drop. We got 2 that go underneath this bracket right here. So now we can go back and forth and tighten these up to bring the cradle drop and keep it even. We'll go back and forth. You want to make sure when you're jacking it up, you don't jack up the cart from there, or at least off of the jack stands. Both sides are pretty close to being even. All good there, and I'm just going to hit it with the impact. Those are in there. Alright, so now that we've got the cradle drop in there, we will test fit the perch spacers that go between the spring and this lower control arm. But before we start tearing anything apart, we're just gonna follow the install guide and mark our cam tabs so that we can bring it back as close as possible to what we had until we can take it to an alignment shop. So, all good at that. So, take a 14mm socket. You want to loosen these up right here. So you want to remove the sway bar. Yeah. Oh, there's a nut on the other end. Oh. So that allows the lower control arms to drop. They're not being held up by the sway bar end link. Gonna loosen up this cam bolt right here, just to allow that lower control arm to pivot all the way down, so that the spring can come out. So you don't have to remove it completely. I'll just loosen it up, loosen both sides up. Alright. Now, we've already got that one loose. We got the sway bar disconnected. Next, we got to remove this one right here. This will allow the lower control arm to drop. So we gotta, before we remove it, let's report it. Control arm. So it can just drop on us. Alright, so we'll do that. 14 millimeter on this end, 17 on this end over here, wide the whole time. Dang it, Bobby. Does not want to work with me. Nuts out. Bolt off. It was a little bit tricky. It required both of us to put the camera down, but it does come off. It's going to take a little bit of muscle. Now we just lower the jack, and it'll bring that lower control arm with it because we don't have the sway bar connected anymore. Jack's in the way. So spring will come out. It's fine. So I'll show it to you guys. Same thing, red spring, TRD Edition. Pretty cool. Spacer. Right in there. So, you can see it right here. Get sandwiched between the frame and the coil spring. So, just a little cap right here. And then the bottom of that perch right there has a pin. It just locates itself right there. And then you keep these little rubber isolators to keep the chatter down. I mean, we're looking pretty good. It looks like it's gonna work. I'm gonna get the other side done and put it back on the ground and see how it does. So let's remove the knuckle from the lower control. 14 millimeter on this side. Just like just use ratchet. Wrench over here. Make it go fly faster. You just keep going all the way. It's easier with a power tool or some sort of a electric ratchet like that. Alright, so now it's disconnected. That's already loose. The sway bars are disconnected. That'll allow the lower control arm to drop, and then we'll catch the spring. And then we get our perch spacer up top, sandwich in between the spring and the frame. Alright, so I'm going to drop this jack here slowly. Keep going. springs out. You could remove it, you don't have to. I'm gonna be nice enough to take it out. We're gonna clean it up just because the red looks cool. Alright, so first we gotta balance the spring. I'll put it right here. Check it out. Put it back on the car. So, for the instructions, we'll pop off that little rubber grommet. And the reason for that, there's that hole right there. And then the spacer has that pin. That'll allow it to be centered. Just a locator pin, pretty cool. And then there's these isolators, right? These rubber isolators. You can keep both of them and use them. Put this thing back in here. Get the spring back in the control arm. Once that's done, we can start jacking it up. Get a little bit of pressure on there, but as we jack it up, we want to make sure that this control arm is going to line up with the spindle right here. If you jack it up all the way, it can get all twisted and bind. It's be a pain in the butt. So just go slow, take it easy, and watch both of them at the same time. Get some fucking WD-40 on this thing here. You get a flathead screwdriver, just any screwdriver, just help you line it up. I like that. Line it up in the back. That way you can get a bolt. Just push through all the way. Once that's going, and you get your ratchet. Just like that. On there. That's it. Tighten it back up, and then don't forget about the sway bar. Sway bar's still there. We gotta let it get in the way and stop us from getting spooled. Lift it up and then go from there. Put it back on the ground and see how the car rides with the lift kit. So far, it's looking like it's fitting. I'm just gonna put the tires back on to get the car on the ground. Level out the sway bar, it makes it easier to connect it back to the control arm. Once the car's on the ground, we'll tighten up the sway bar end links, and we'll also get 2 cam bolts for the lower control arm. You want to make sure that you tighten them when the car's at ride height and not full droop. If you get it at full droop, it's gonna bind, it's gonna make noises. You'll probably work with it a lot faster. And so now we got the car on the ground. We're gonna get the sway bar hooked up. Like I said, it's easier with the car being on the ground. It allows the sway bar to sit. Alright, so that's on there. tighten up these cam bolts, but we want to make sure that lines are still matching up as close as possible when we first made the mark. So that one looks good. We didn't move it much. Then I'll get the other side, and then we're good to go. We're good to go for a test drive. So we're done with the install. Everything bolted up just fine. No issues, no binding. There was no issue getting that rear coil to seat. So everything's looking good so far. Just gonna measure it. You guys on here can see the difference. Already. So I'll measure from the ground around to the bottom of this fender here. We're at 34 inches. This is level ground right here. So 34 from the ground to the fender. And the rear, we're looking at also 34. So it's a pretty even lift, and it's designed that way. So you get 2 inches in the front, 1.5 in the rear. Cars always come with a rake stand, so that ½ inch in the rear, less than a ½ inch in the rear, is to level it out. So it's pretty good. 34 inches all the way around. Now we're gonna take it out for a test drive and see what it does. Hopefully we don't get lost out there and lose a wheel. All right, let's go. All right. So we go for a test drive, get it to settle. Just too much sauce. All right, steering wheel's pretty straight. Since we made the marks, we followed the install guide. Put marks on the front cams, the rear cams. Well, the front doesn't have cams, but the 2 bolts. So the car's pretty straight right now. Drives pretty straight. Definitely sits taller. Oh, fellow off-roader, gotta give him the peace sign. Yeah, you need to give me a peace sign back. That's pretty straight. That's good. No funny noises, no clunking. Rides a lot better.
Alright, so here's a little overview on what we did today. We took this 2021 Toyota RAV4 TRD Edition. We brought it in for some R&D. We had a customer who was nice enough to let us borrow it. And our kit fits. Took 2 inches in the front, 1.5 in the rear. Leveled the car out just fine. Like you guys saw earlier, we measured it and it came out to 34 inches from the ground to that fender line. Car looks good, feels good, rides good. And we're happy to know that the kit works on the Toyota RAV4 TRD Edition. Yeah, give us a call, send us an email, let us know if you have any questions. Comment below if you guys want to see anything else, and we can come back and touch base with you guys. Check out those questions you guys have, and maybe we can answer them either in the comments or drop us an email. Thanks, guys.